show, learning more about the art of leading.
This is also the book title written by a local author, and Triad residents have a chance to meet him this Saturday in Greensboro.
So joining us now is Roy Dockery, the author of The Art of Leading. Good morning. Thank you for being with us.
Good morning. Good morning. Great to see you all. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So why, in your opinion, is it critical to be writing about the subject of leadership?
Yeah, I think we've spent a lot of time, whether it's in nonprofit spaces, corporations, talking about management, right? So we've talked about management a lot. We've talked about management science. One thing that I realized transitioning from the military to the corporate world was we talked about management a lot, but nobody really focused on leadership and how to lead people, how to lead them effectively, and then especially how to lead across generations. So I'm a millennial who's had to lead, Gen Z, as well as baby boomers and traditionalists. So it was kind of an interesting challenge. And so over the years, I had to combine and accumulate all of this leadership information to try to get a good picture of how I should lead people from different backgrounds. And as I started to mentor and coach people, one thing that became clear is we need a book that specifically addresses this topic, because there's a lot of new managers and a lot of new leaders entering the workforce. And they just need guidance and some direction on how to be a good leader, and then also how to do leadership effectively as well.
Roy, I totally agree with you. I think there's a lot of books, a lot of material out there that teaches people how to be a manager, how to do this and how to do that. But as far as leading people, that is a skill in itself. So what are some of the key themes and some of the principles that you share in the book?
Yeah, I think, the subtitle of the book is Truth, Love, and Empathy in Action, right? I think one thing that we've kind of removed from the business lexicon is the word love, right? We substituted care and empathy and things of that nature. But to truly connect with people, I think you have to love them, right? And not in a generic sense or in a romantic sense, but to genuinely care for them and want their best interests, right? So I think that's the way you drive inclusivity. That's the way you drive equity, is making sure that people feel cared for. And then all of the other leadership principles based off of that, right? As a leader, we need to be authentic. We need to be empathetic, but we also need to be direct. We need to hold people accountable, and we need to learn how to effectively delegate so that people feel empowered and not micromanaged. And then sometimes we need to learn how to transition, whether that's stepping out of a leadership role or having to transition people out of roles that they're struggling in, being successful in. So that's kind of briefly the touch points. There are 13 chapters in the book, and each one is a principle that has reflection questions, and it also has examples of real life principles put in action from either my career as a technology executive, times in the military, or even some of the leadership things that I do from a community perspective.
Sounds wonderful. And Roy, we hear you are hosting a book signing in Greensboro on Saturday. Tell us about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I'm hosting a book signing where people have an opportunity to come. I'll actually have testimonials from leaders that I've mentored around the country, some different CEOs, business leaders, executives, and things of that nature. There'll be some people there speaking live as well. But largely it'll just be a relatively intimate gathering. People can come, talk about leadership, speak to me directly. We'll have a panel with some Q&A. We'll take questions from the audience. And then people have an opportunity to buy physical copies of the book and get them signed as well. So we will have physical copies there on Saturday as well.
Awesome. Great that we can plug that event ahead of time. Now, we hear that you call yourself a triad transplant. Can you share what what role it plays in your own leadership journey?
Absolutely. Yeah. I moved to North Carolina when I was in the 11th grade. My mom got transferred into a job. I moved to Raleigh, but I wound up attending North Carolina A&T. And really, that's where my leadership journey began. I never really saw myself as a leader. I was a bookworm, nerd kind of kid. So I played sports, but never organized sports. But when I got on campus, being an intellectual, being somebody that could mentor and offer advice, is where my journey started, right? I started my first consulting company when I was 19 years old. I think I was a sophomore at A&T. So from that point, seeing that, okay, you can have an influence and you can help direct people to where they're trying to get to, was important. I started doing ministry when I was in high school as well. So, when I was in college here as well. So that's, it's kind of the birth of my journey. I left North Carolina. I went to South Carolina. I've lived in Delaware. I've worked all over the country, nationally, globally. And then in 2020, my family actually moved back to the Greensboro area, and we built a house here. So I've resettled. So I've transplanted here now twice. But it's the place we choose to call home, even though I'm not actually from here. So.
Yeah, well, nice that you get to be here too to see everyone on Saturday. Congratulations on your success, Roy. We hope for a great event for you. The Art of Leading is out right now. To grab your copy of the book and learn more about the book signing on Saturday, you can visit roydockery.org.